Hey friends, Ash here. Welcome back to Gents. Hope that you're doing well. It's finally getting to the point where it's consistently cold outside. I don't know if it's the same where you live, but in the southern US, the weather is, how do I put this? Odd.
Oh, sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Oh, God, I would
Finally, sweater weather.
Or psychotic. You could also say psychotic, yeah. So each year what seems to happen is as you head into fall, it starts to cool down and you're like, oh, okay, fall is here. And then a week later, it's like you're in the middle of summer again. Just oppressively hot.
I'm baking like a toasted cheese here. It's so hot here.
And then 2 days later, it's cold out. And in the middle of the night, it's like hitting almost freezing temperatures and you're like, oh, okay, fall is here.
Just playing.
Now it's hotter than it was in the middle of summer. Now it's fall again. Now it's winter. Now it's summer.
Well, damn, Jackie, I can't control the weather.
It feels like that, just completely erratically out of control. Like a teenager going through puberty. Shout out to all you teens out there.
But we've been waiting for this moment since we hit puberty.
But yeah, it's basically like that. It's completely out of control, but we finally hit the point where it's just going to get chilly and cool down each passing week. I'm pretty sure anyway. I can't imagine we're gonna be in the middle of December and be like, oh, it's 92 degrees outside. That's Fahrenheit. You already knew that. But with that in mind, I wanted to talk about some clone fragrances, some cheaper fragrances that are gonna smell way more expensive than they cost and smell amazing when it does get chilly outside. All of these are going to be linked in the description, so feel free to check them out down there. Let's get it started with this one, which it's a stupid way to present a fragrance. This one, Hypnotic Oud Quince 15, North Stag. Quite a name. And North Stag, in case you're unaware, is basically Paris Corner. The presentation on this, very interesting. The box is actually really nice. The bottle is heavy in the hand, has a cap that's showy, and then has this interesting like stock bottle look to it with a reflective, but at the same time transparent gold paint. And the fragrance itself is fantastic in terms of the quality. This stuff is banging. And if memory serves me correctly, this is the first North Stag fragrance that I ever smelled, and it's really the one that made me want to go get more of them. So this is a clone of the Spirit of Dubai's Mesdames, which is their most popular fragrance, their most hyped fragrance. It's a leather scent, little bit similar to something like Tuscan leather. Or honestly, that comparison to Tuscan leather is not really fair because it's not that super close to Tuscan leather and it does its own thing, but it's kind of in that wheelhouse. Also a little bit similar to things like Halfeti from Penhaligon's, but again, more just in the general overall feel, as opposed to smelling directly similar to it. So this is very high quality, approachable leather fragrance, has a good amount of sweetness in there from saffron, also some fruits, a little bit of oud as well. The warm spiciness off the top is just immediately attention grabbing. The performance is great as well. This is a very high quality fragrance. It's gonna be more of an evening scent. You could wear this dressed up, you could wear this on a date. Big attention grabber, great quality, great price. Let's see, next up let's talk about the Tux from Maison Alhambra, which by the way is no longer called the Tux. So if you look for this, you're gonna look for Winsome. Maison Alhambra Winsome. W-I-N-S-O-M-E. That is what the Tux is now. And this is something that we've seen a lot of here recently from clone brands where they put out something that looks very similar to the fragrance that they're cloning and they use a very similar name. They've had to go back sometimes and change the presentation, other times just change up the name, but that has happened a lot here recently and this is one of those fragrances where that did occur. And it's pretty obvious why, because I mean, presentation is pretty similar to Yves Saint Laurent Tuxedo and the name, the Tux, pretty similar too. So yeah, just want to put that out there. The Tux is Winsome now. Same fragrance, different name. This is another one that's very rich, warm, a bit sweet. It has patchouli in there, spices, vanilla, extremely easy to wear, but at the same time has that niche aesthetic to it. It walks that balance between designer and niche stylings is what I mean to say. Doesn't smell quite like your average fall and wintertime designer fragrance, but it has designer wearability. Good performance with this one, fantastic quality, amazing price point. You can get this for about $25. bucks. And at one point in time, back when it was called the Tux and it was being hyped a lot, it was more difficult to find. That price point was higher. So being able to pick this up at 25 is a good win. Stupid. And there are a lot of other alternatives to Tuxedo out there. Rocus Mustache Eau de Parfum is not a direct clone, but that one's really well done. Fragrance World has an alternative to Tuxedo that's really good. Paris Corner has one. Just about everybody does, honestly. But this is probably the one that was the biggest, the one that more people are gonna wanna go for outside of maybe Mustache. Next up, I have the most attention-grabbing bottle of this list, pretty easily. It's His Confession from Lattafa. Take a look at that. That is something. It's a big old cap with a bust of a fellow with quite a long neck, actually, kind of giraffe neck in it, and he's got gold paint on his eyes. He's looking stylish, profilish. Looks like he's going to some kind of party. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I don't want to know. It's his confession. It's probably some weird stuff.
If there was a party, then I'd know nothing about that.
Bottle itself actually is a little bit lighter than you might expect, mainly because the cap is pretty lightweight. Bottle itself is not, but when you look at this, you think, oh man, it's gonna be like, oof, you know, one of those really heavy duty clone bottles, but it's really not. That being said, quality here, once again, out of control. I got mine for about 38 bucks from Fragrance Buy, so just under 40. I think that when this was first announced, there were some stores taking pre-orders that were charging quite a bit more than that. But at the price I got it for, no qualms, it is great. It's a clone of Celine's Black Tie. So this one has cinnamon, iris, lavender, benzoin, vanilla as some of the notes. There's also incense in there and tonka. It could remind you a little bit of fragrances like Dior Homme Intense, and that's also just because Black Tie could potentially remind you of fragrances like that. And this is one of those ones that has no right smelling as good as it does. For the price point, it's just like, but you do have to like iris-based fragrances. If you don't like iris, a little bit of incense cutting through and some nice sweetness underneath, and that iris coming across more, a little bit more anyway, in that makeup-y style. If you don't like that, you're probably not gonna like this. But I think it's absolutely killer. And the bottle, you know, maybe a little bit love it or hate it, but at least it's different. And speaking of Dior Homme Intense, how about Dark Door Intense? That's right, Dark Door Intense, because I don't know, because the bottle is dark, maybe? I don't know. Dior Homme Dark Door. I will tell you guys though, this one is stupid good and way better than I expected. I love Dior Homme Intense. A lot of you out there know that. It's one of my favorite fragrances ever. Whether we're talking designer, niche, indie, expensive, cheap, moderate, I don't care. It's one of my favorites. It will always be one of my favorites, which means if you clone it and you do a crappy job, I'm gonna flame you, okay? I'm gonna flame you if you do that. So I got this one in. Cap sucks. Cap just kind of, you know, doesn't even stay on there whatsoever. Just falls right off. But gave it a spray and it's really good. It doesn't come across smelling cheap. It doesn't come across smelling synthetic. It has that rich, creamy iris, just like Dior Homme Intense. It has that ambrette. It nails the scent profile about as much as you could ever possibly expect a cheap fragrance to do. Kind of going back to what I said over here, it's one of those things where you smell it and you're like, how did they do it? Like, they crushed it. The only thing that you could bag this one for, that you could knock it down for, is the performance is not on par with Dior Homme Intense. Dior Homme Intense is stronger, it lasts longer, it projects further. This is noticeably weaker than Dior Homme Intense, but in terms of the scent profile, nailed it. And I guess if you want to look at it with the silver lining, you could say, well, that's good though, the weaker performance, because I can wear it a little easier. Dior Homme Intense is strong. It's gonna get you noticed, okay? It's gonna project, it's gonna fill up a room if you go heavy with that one. With this one, it's a little more subtle. So you could wear it and get that Dior Homme Intense vibe, but have it be a little more close to the skin, you know, a little more of a personal scent cloud. I guess you could also potentially just spray this one on heavier if you wanted to get closer to Dior Homme Intense in terms of the performance. But yeah, a little bit of a subtle Dior Homme Intense vibe, and it's just amazing for the price point outside of the goofy name and the crappy cap and the subpar atomizer. But what's inside here? Really good. Next up, we've got Perlador from Barouge, and this is a clone of Carlisle from Parfums de Marly. And this one has a great atomizer. So we go from subpar atomizer to, ooh, pressurized. So close. Give me the magnetic cap with the pressurized atomizer. Automatic 2-point bump up. Not really, but maybe not entirely, not really. And this is really fantastic as far as Carlisle alternatives. I think that for me, this would be my go-to for a Carlisle clone. There's also Bravanzo Baron, which is kind of in the style of Carlisle also, but this one is a little bit smoother overall. Both have great performance, by the way. Bravanzo Baron is a beast. This one, very strong as well, but this one just has like a little more of an approachable sweetness when you first spray it on, and then, like I said, slightly smoother as well. And Carlisle is one of the more beloved Parfums de Marly fragrances for fall and winter. It's really classy, but at the same time, very sexy. Big compliment puller. And Carlisle also, just like this one, big performance, which is what a lot of people look for in fragrances around, you know, into fall and into winter. The next fragrance is this one from Ramon Blazar. It's Maison Noir No. 5. And this is kind of a weird one because you look at the presentation, it looks kind of similar to like a Thomas Cosmala, right? As far as the cap and the bottle style and everything else. Then you look at the name and it's Maison Noir No. 5, number V, and you think, well, maybe that's Louis Vuitton, Matière Noir, right? Might be butchering the pronunciation as well, I apologize. And yet, this is neither of those things. It's one of those clones where you're just like, okay, I'm trying to follow along with what you're doing, but it's not making much sense. The name sounds like it could be this, but it's not. The bottle looks like it could be this, but it's not. This is actually a clone, believe it or not, of Oud for Greatness. Yeah, I got this one and sprayed it on and was like, wait a sec. That is nothing I thought it would be, because in my mind, I was like, it's gonna be either this or that. The two things I was talking about before. It's neither. Presentation's pretty nice, very heavy in the hand. Cap is very heavy as well. Quality, once again, fantastic. This is one of those ones, as soon as you spray it on, you can smell it. It doesn't have any funk to it. At least, you know, it smells like Oud for Greatness. So if you think Oud for Greatness has a funk to it, it does have that kind of funk. But when I say funk, I'm talking about that off-putting, weird opening that clone fragrances can sometimes have where you spray them on and it smells like either rubbing alcohol or just straight up garbage. This one's quite rich, very woodsy, and a little more masculine leaning than Oud for Greatness. Not that Oud for Greatness, you know, couldn't very easily be worn by men, of course. This just has a little more of an underlying woodiness to it, even more so. And it's another one that has, once again, great performance. Up next, we have Armaf Club de Nuit Précieux. This is, of course, a clone of Absolute Aventus from Creed. Comes in a smaller sized bottle, which looks pretty nice, but does have a propensity to wobble. Yes, it sure does. It's like treating it like a small child. Who likes to wobble? Who likes to wobble? You do. Yes, you do. Yep. This one? Nope. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. This one? Yep. It's an interesting size, 55 milliliters, not 50. You get 10% more, or you get 45 mils less than a typical 100, or 50 mils less than the normal Club de Nuit 105 size. Nah, we'll just stick with the, you get 10% more. That sounds better.
More money, more money! Ah!
And it is frankly stunning. Like, that is a very well done alternative to Absolute Aventus. It is more expensive than your typical Armaf fragrance. It's more expensive than your typical Club de Nuit fragrance, especially when you boil it down to price per milliliter. But in terms of just how this stuff smells, it is great. And in terms of versatility, that's the most versatile thing here. It's absolutely not just a wintertime fragrance. Actually, most people would probably say it's more like spring and fall. But for me, I think it's best for literally year round. So that means if you can use it year round, winter is part of the year. Nice compliment puller, great quality once again, and much smoother than your standard Club de Nuit Intense Man, which is of course a clone of normal Aventus. After that, Mystic Leather from French Avenue. French Avenue is part of Fragrance World, and this, in case you can't tell by the presentation style there, is a clone of Falcon Leather. Falcon Leather, of course, is the fragrance of choice of celebrity Falco Lombardi. People like, who's Falco Lombardi? Come on.
But that's the friggin' guy, though!
Falco, honey, you don't want your father getting in trouble again.
Really nice performance on this one. A strong leather fragrance. Bit of saffron off the top gives it a nice bit of sweetness, warm spice as well. And it has a smokiness that kind of lingers through the fragrance, cuts through there from the opening into the dry down. Quality, once again, very high with this one. It was around 40 bucks, I think, from Fragrance Buy, maybe a little bit less, but somewhere around there. And it is gonna be a stronger leather fragrance than some of the other ones here that feature leather. So not that it's difficult to wear, but it is one of those ones that is a little bit more bold. After that, we have Tobacco Rush from Offnon. Love the presentation on this one. Got a nice magnetic cap here. Yeah, see, that's a good one. That's a nice one. And just overall looks good with the design on there, very eye-catching. And this one is a clone of Mystery Tobacco, which is a really nice high-end sweet tobacco scent from Carolina Herrera. Yes, great. If you've never smelled Mystery Tobacco from Carolina Herrera, that one is kind of in the style of like Red Tobacco from Mancera or Carlisle from Parfums de Marly. Those are the ones that most commonly it gets compared to. Got a great sweetness when you first spray it on, nice spices in there. It's got a little bit of like an earthiness underneath, but it's not overwhelming. Just really well done, classy, sexy, somewhat sweet pipe tobacco. And once again, the quality for the price point is a steal. One thing that is sometimes a little bit annoying is these little, like, I don't know, faux leather-ish kind of cloth pieces that are glued on the sides here, like right here. They start to kind of pop up, I'll show you. So hopefully you can make it out, but like right up here in the corner, it starts to kind of like flip up, and you have to try to press it back down because you don't want like all of this to just rip off, right? Because then it would go from looking nice to looking like crap. Final fragrance, here it is, Proud of You Oud. That is a very obvious alternative to Stronger with You Oud. Proud of You Oud. Great atomizer. So Stronger with You Oud, of course, is a Middle Eastern exclusive flanker of the original Stronger with You that takes that DNA, the Stronger with You style, and adds oud to it. You're right. I'm proud of you. Oh, let's make it stop. Terrible dad jokes. And this is an alternative to that fragrance. As I said, has that bit of chestnut warmth, that gourmand kind of edge that Stronger with You has. Very good performance here. The oud that's in here is not at all challenging, animalic, fecal, barnyardy, nothing like that. So for some people that would make it much more boring because it doesn't have as much complexity, doesn't have as much of an interesting feel going on with that oud note that you find in here. Oud. But it does have a nice kind of dark, semi-sweet woodiness underneath, which is the oud note that's in here, and it smells really pleasant, very appealing. And it's a great alternative to Stronger with You Oud for much less. So there we go, guys. There are some fragrances right there, some alternatives, some clones, some inspired by releases. All of these smell great during the winter time, and they smell much more expensive than they cost. Some of them insanely so. I want to thank you all for hanging with me. Stay safe out there, bundle up this winter, and I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys.